interest. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us this week. A Partnership for National Unity will celebrate its second birthday on Monday, the 15th of July 2013. And with me today to discuss progress made by the partnership since its formation is none other than the leader of the People's National Congress Reform, who's also the leader of A Partnership for National Unity, Mr. David Granger. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Malika.
All right. It's always great to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. And as APNU quickly approaches the second anniversary, sir, what are some of the greatest achievements? And I'm asking this because I know during the 2011 general elections, APNU prided itself on providing a good life for all Guyanese and being a partnership centered around people and embracing people and human resources. What would you say would have been APNU's greatest achievement in 2 years?
It's a difficult question. It's tempting. I would say, first of all, that if I can take a step back,
Sure.
We went into the 2011 elections with only 4 months campaigning, really. We launched in July. We only had August, September, October, and then November. We were right into the elections. As you said, now we're celebrating the second anniversary. What did we achieve? For one, we brought about for the first time in Guyana a 5-party partnership. Prior to the elections, going into the National Assembly, right now we have the Guyana Action Party, the Justice for All Party, the National Front Alliance, the Working People's Alliance, and the People's National Congress. It's the first time it has happened, 5 parties together. I think that in itself is an achievement. Secondly, we have established, because of our partnership, because of our strength on the ground, because of our ability to move around the country, we have established rapport with a wide range of citizens. Over the last year, or even less than a year, we have visited every single region in this country. No other party has done that. Even the PPP, which is in government, which has the access to government resources and funding and aircraft, has not done as much work in the field as we have done. By the end of June, we'd gone to the Barima-Waini region. Our MPs had gone to the Pataro-Separuni. We've gone to Rupununi. Every single region we visited. And I think that is because of our commitment to the people, as well as the fact that we have 5 parties now. It's not just one party, 5 parties. They're working simultaneously on the ground. The third achievement is that we have gone into the National Assembly. We have been able, on the strength of the voters in November 2011, we've been able to create history, parliamentary history. For the first time in my life, we have the government walking out of the National Assembly. We have the government bills being defeated. We have the government mobilizing public servants on the street to protest against the opposition. Can you imagine what's going on? We turned politics upside down in this country. And I would say we've done so not in a disruptive manner. There have not been any, riots and arson and looting and so on. We have tried to introduce good governance, and we've used our strength in the National Assembly as a partnership to bring about the change in government behavior. So I would limit it at those 3. The fact that we have given Guyanese better representation, we ourselves do better outreach. We have created a 5-party coalition, and the coalition is healthy. We're celebrating our second birthday. And we have made the National Assembly pay more attention to the wishes of the majority of the people.
You spoke about those outreaches indeed, and it is so because we see the proof, we see it in the media every day. What do you believe that those outreaches, or if I may say, rubbing shoulders with the ordinary people on the ground, the people who continue to suffer every day, what do you believe that those outreaches would have done for those people?
I think all politics is local. Okay. And if we are to be meaningful in what we set out to do, that is to give people a good life, we have to find what the people want. Now, this creates a lot of confusion in the minds of some persons. You know, people in the diaspora, sometimes people using the social media, want to know, well, what is APNU doing? Well, APNU is doing what it's supposed to do. That is, meet people, find out what their problems are, bring those problems to the National Assembly and bring about solutions. Some people expect us to go marching and making noise, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is not to make noise. The purpose is to provide the people with certain outcomes. Look, for example, what sort of motions have we brought before the National Assembly? We brought motions to investigate trafficking in persons. No other party has done that. This is the first time in any parliament that a successful motion has been brought to bring an end to trafficking in persons. And almost every day now, in the newspapers, you can see news about trafficking in persons. Our motion, our action has energized, I'm not saying we invented anything, but we have energized civil society. The lid is off, the veil has been lifted, people can now pay attention. Hey, these young women are being trafficked, these young women are sex slaves, these people are being fooled. And the thing to remember is that APNU has lifted the veil on a serious crime, and nobody can cover it back again. The genie is out of the bottle, and investigation into trafficking in persons will now become central to the law enforcement agenda, and we're discovering the police are complicit. That perhaps is one of the reasons why we heard so little about trafficking in persons, because the police themselves, who should be stamping out the crime, are encouraging the crime. Similarly, in the field of health, we have brought a motion to investigate the deaths of children in the Burima-Wangi region, Region 1. Again, when you read what has been happening with gastroenteritis over the years, we discover that every rainy season that is between December and March or April, maybe because of the turbidity of the water or whatever it is a phenomenon that had been discovered before. The water becomes so contaminated, so polluted, that people get gastrointestinal disorders. And people die. But somehow or the other, before APNU, people seem to accept that, hey, yeah, you know, it's just like, oh, tomorrow morning the sun will rise, or day after tomorrow rain will fall, and next month children will die. We don't accept that. We said every single life must be accounted for, must be investigated. So, in terms of our parliamentary record, yes, it is true that APNU has been marching through the streets shouting the head off, but APNU is giving Guyanese a better life. APNU is paying attention to the real concerns of real people. This is not imaginary. TIP is not imaginary. Gastroenteritis is not imaginary. These are real problems we have, and we've been going there, meeting people and solving problems. Maybe some people want us to go to the street corner and make a lot of noise and threaten people. Well, I'm not saying that we accept what the government is doing or that we are timid or anything, but what I'm saying is that our agenda is to give the Guyanese a better life, and I think that is one of our achievements.
Your non-supporters may want to say, despite, you're talking about lifting the veil from the TIP and bringing these bills and motions to Parliament. Your non-supporters may say that, look, while APNU is there, we're still seeing lawlessness at its highest in Guyana. And if I may go back to, we had the Agricola, if I could call that an event, not in a good way, of course, and then there was the Linden tragedy, which we will soon observe 1 year of that. Now, what would you say to those non-supporters who are saying that, look, despite APNU is claiming that it's working, we still have these things going on in society?
Well, those two incidents are quite different in character. The incident at Linden arose out of an attempt by the Minister of Finance to raise the tariffs, and that started within a few days, just about 4 days after he made the announcement in the National Assembly. He made the announcement in March 2012. And the women of Linden said, no, we're not going to have it. And it was a civil protest. And all through April, all through May, all through June, APNU gave support to the civil protests, but it was never disorderly. Even on the 18th of July, permission was granted, and everyone knows what happened. They don't have to go over the Commission of Inquiry, but some elements decided to stay on the bridge, and the police saw them there, 10 o'clock in the morning, went away, and when it was getting dark, the police went back and started to shoot. But there was no attempt to attack the police or destroy property, and I think it's accepted that the actual shooting was unprovoked, and it was done by the police, and that's why compensation being paid. So that incident, even if it is regarded as a culmination of several other things which have been happening at Linden concerning the protest, I think is quite different from what happened elsewhere. And we had pickets, orderly pickets in Georgetown. I myself was on the street outside of the Minister of Home Affairs' office and outside of the President's office. We had peaceful pickets, and we supported the struggle throughout. It was a question of whether citizens in a given region could be heard by the central government. So it had many dimensions, and I would say it was essentially orderly. Now, what happened in Agricola is completely different. A child was shot, a young man was shot, dead by the police, and we saw Mr. Felix and I went into the village, we spoke to the mother, we gave support, we went to the funeral, but when the matter came before the magistrate's court, some elements in the crowd felt that the policeman who was accused of doing the shooting was being treated in a favorable manner, a manner in which other persons accused of murder would not be treated. And I do not understand, I do not know why up to now, the disorder broke out in Agricola. But APNU had nothing to do with that. And there were obviously agents or people provoking the crisis. There was disorder. We expressed our regret that there was disorder, and we expressed our sympathy with persons, with the victims who might have suffered from that disorder. But we had nothing to do with it. Even the mother of the child who was killed said she had nothing to do with it. So there was a bit of hooliganism, but it had nothing to do with our partnership. So there are two different things. One was certainly a disorderly scene, and Linden, I think, was quite orderly, and the shooting was unjustified. So I wouldn't link the two incidents together at all. But even if the detractors, if you go back to the papers, no one seriously has accused the APNU of instigating the disorder in Agricola.
But even though you're not instigating the disorder, it's a practice in society. The minute anything happens, people are like, okay, we have a government that's not paying attention to us, and then there's the opposition that seem to can't help us. After 2 years, sir, how much more do you think the opposition can do for Guyana? After 2 years of APNU, that should be?
Well, our work isn't finished.
Okay.
I would say that a lot more work has to be done at the parliamentary level. Again, people may want to hear this. The people want us to go down the street. We're not the government. APNU only has 26 seats out of 65, and that is not a majority. In order to get a favorable vote, we have to win the cooperation of the Alliance for Change. And we are in touch with the Alliance for Change. And before we go to the National Assembly, we always ensure that our positions are understood by each other's positions. Now, two things. One, in the National Assembly, we have to ensure that the authority of the National Assembly is recognized, is respected, that people must understand that there are three branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. Now, each branch has a different function to perform. The legislative branch has to make the laws. The executive branch has to execute the laws, carry out the laws, the decisions which are made by the legislative branch. And the judicial branch has to interpret the laws. Now, the legislative branch, the National Assembly, the Parliament, we are not the government, but we are the superior branch of government. As long as we behave under the Constitution, what we direct, the decisions that we make must be followed, as long as it's not unlawful. Now, it has been a struggle over the last 18 months to get the executive branch to understand that. Because, as you know, some bills have been passed, and the president has announced, even before the bills were passed, that he was not going to send to them. Well, we can't accept that. So we have got to get the president, the executive branch, and we've got to create a situation in which the executive branch understands its role in Guyana. Its role is to execute the decisions of the National Assembly, of Parliament. Its role is to execute the laws of this country. And that is what it is there for. It is not superior to the National Assembly, not superior to the Parliament. So the first task that we have, and it's a continuing task, is to assert and to preserve the autonomy, the authority of the National Assembly. It has not been easy because we haven't got the bills to send it to, but it's a work in progress. The second thing, of course, is to make ministers accountable, that ministers must be accountable to the National Assembly. We can't have ministers who are incompetent. We can't have ministers who are dishonest or corrupt. So when a minister comes before the National Assembly, he must understand that his work, his ministry, his performance will be under scrutiny, and he will be accountable. If, for example, his conduct is regarded as maybe detrimental to the public good, he must explain, he must give answers. This is what happened a year ago in July 2012, when we brought a motion of no confidence in Mr. Clement Roy. We felt that he was not a competent person to ensure the security of this country. Every day you pick up the paper, you say, hey, what's going on here? You know, bandits rob gas station owner, truck turns over the hinterland, man burns down house trying to buy it from, you know, the tenants. He said, this is lawlessness. And we keep insisting to the government that the ministers must be accountable. And Rohi is accountable to the National Assembly. The fact that he's still there is not to want to try. We have fought over the last 18 months, since the 10th Parliament has convened, to ensure that the authority of the National Assembly is not damaged, and that the accountability of the ministers to the National Assembly is understood. And as I said, it's a work in progress. I can't call it a victory, but it is something that we have made our mission or objective or task or main chore when we go there, is to ensure that the National Assembly is respected and that the ministers don't come to us and tell lies.
I think it's fair to say that after 2 years, APNU has become a bit closer to the people of our hinterland communities, and you've somehow managed to bridge that gap by doing these outreaches. So let's talk about those outreaches a bit. Do you get the sense, especially since 2 years of APNU, you've gone to the interior locations and faraway locations several times now, do you get the sense that the people of those communities have a better understanding of APNU's aims, its goals, and its purpose for the Guyanese people?
I would say that people countrywide understand better. When you look back at what happened in 2011, I mentioned it was quite a short campaign. People did not even know what symbol we were using. People didn't know who we were. They knew what the PNC was, they knew what the WPA was, but there was a lot of suspicion. I think the clouds have lifted, you know, the mist has disappeared, and people understand better. Yes, in answer to the question you asked, I would say that not only hinterland, but people on the coastline as well have a better understanding. Now, when you look at the hinterland, I think many people on the coastline may not have a very clear picture We went recently to the Barima Winey region, Region 1. Now, that region voted 6 to 7% for the People's Progressive Party. It is unbelievable. When you go to Mabruma is one of the oldest settlements in the entire country. As a township, it should have long been a town. The Barima Winey region, as I mentioned to you on a previous occasion, is 4 times the size of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a huge region. And in Mabruma, consistently, I mean, from the time I started campaigning there, over 2 years, has had 18 hours of blackout a day. Up to last month, Mabruma gets 6 hours of light a day. Mabruma has no bank. People have to walk around with bundles of money in plastic bags. When you go to Kumaka should be the water street of the community. But it's really the water street because the river water actually washes onto the roadway. The roadway is just slush. I asked myself, how in heaven's name could these people vote 6 to 7% for the People's Progressive Party? And they're starting to understand they've been fooled. They've been fooled by the PPP. You know, PPP goes up the river and hands out a few outboard engines, hands out a few ATVs, hands out a few sewing machines, hands out a few solar panels. But the region is not being developed. You can go to some areas and see so many mangoes on the ground. Even the pigs fed up of eating the mangoes. But we cannot get a system in which the farmers are allowed to deliver the goods to the market. So it's really a case of the grass is growing and the horse is starving, because we in Georgetown are not getting the produce. The Northwest is one of the most fertile, one of the richest regions, agricultural regions in this country. The beautiful avocados, the mango, all fruit could be produced there. You can taste the difference in the coconut water. When you look at the fish, they've got some fleshy Moroccan fish, crabs in season. There is no food, with the exception perhaps of rice. There's no food stuff that you can want that the Northwest doesn't produce. But it's one of the poorest regions. The roads are potholed. There is one ferry that takes about 30 hours to go from Georgetown to Kumaka. And it is a 75-year-old ferry, the Lady Norcote. It is impossible to supply an entire region with one ferry once or twice a month, because it doesn't even go every day, it doesn't go every week, because it is so old and so slow, and the capacity is so limited that it is actually contributing to the I would say, underdevelopment of the Barima Winey region. So I single out that region because the other regions have similar problems. For example, the Potaro-Seperuni region, the Region 8, it is one of the most difficult regions. Every year there's something called a safari. Can you imagine people traversing a region by a safari? A safari is an African word for like an expedition through the jungle. We should have roads. We shouldn't have safaris. We should be able to drive from one end of the country to the next. There's no safari in the United States. There's no safari in the United Kingdom. We treat this whole hinterland as if it's some sort of frontier country. The problem is that all of the essentials for a good quality of life in the Potaro-Seperuni region are in short supply. So at the level of education, you find that the best child in National Grade 6 for the Potaro-Seperuni gets, I think, 400 and something points, 468 or something, very low, when you compare with what's happening in the rest of the coastline. So even Cameron, you find that people are paying $2,800 a gallon for gasoline. So I would say that the hinterland is a zone of neglect. And what we are fighting for in APNU is to ensure that people everywhere get a good life. And that is why I would say our outreach has not been focused on the hinterland alone. Our outreach is national. Our outreach goes to East Bank Babis, East Bank Demerara, we go to Samata Point, we meet real people and ask what their problems are. A lot of young people need jobs, and we are concerned about that. We are concerned about the quality of education, because without a good education, they wouldn't get jobs. So these are our concerns. And yes, people in both coastland and hinterland are getting a better understanding of what APNU stands for, what it can do. And I believe the next time elections come around, it wouldn't be the same as what happened after a 4-month campaign, because this time we're waging a 4-year campaign.
Okay, right. I just want to talk about policies and partners before we wrap up today. Would you say that any of your policies would have changed 2 years ago compared to 2 years ago to now? Any of your policies changed or any major adjustments?
I would say our policies have been intensified, they've been deepened. There's been a lot of resistance. There are things that we wanted to do, which we couldn't do because we are not in the National Assembly, we are not in the executive branch. And things like better pay for public servants. We believe that for the government to work better, for the country to function more efficiently, we need an educated, we need a well-remunerated public service. We have not been able to get that done. We wanted to bring down the level of the value-added tax. We haven't been able to get that done. We realize that the working people as a whole are not being treated in a way that would encourage development. So there's still a lot of crime, there's still a lot of migration, and many of the remedies we propose have not been accepted by the government. We feel that if we improve the quality of life, we will get better production, better performance. Our teachers will stay, our students will go to schools which are well administered, and that it will have create what we call a virtuous cycle. Because people are better educated, they get better jobs. People get better jobs, they produce more. People produce more, the country gets richer. And that's what we expected. But the government seems to have a hold. They do not understand that investment in people is essential to get not only better quality of life, but better production. So by holding back public servants, by holding back teachers, by holding back nurses, by holding back the pay of the people who are really running the country, and we're really holding back development. So we have received a lot of resistance from the government, but we'll continue working because we are convinced that the course of action that we embarked on 2 years ago is the correct course. Putting people first, making sure that people are comfortable with the economy, comfortable with education, comfortable with employment, and you will see this country moving again, but it hasn't happened. The PPP has still got a grip on the purse strings, and we've used our clout in the National Assembly as best we could to make the PPP more compliant, or to make the PPP care a lot more about the way ordinary people live in this country. But we've campaigned, we've fought for them.
Finally, sorry, in the last minute or so of this broadcast, earlier you mentioned partners who were part of a partnership for national unity, and did they help to form a partnership for national unity? Are these partners, in your opinion, from what you've seen working with them, are they still committed to one goal, the same goal?
Yes, definitely. We know that there have been some adverse reports in the media, but we've had meetings with the Working People's Alliance, and I think they understand the serious members of the party, the executive members of the party, understand where we're going, and we will continue to work with our partners. We meet with the parliamentary group, that is the other parties, we meet in the parliamentary group. In addition to that, APNU has set up something called the Executive Council and the Legislative and the Leadership Council, and these function. The Executive Council meets once a month, the Leadership Council should meet once a quarter. And yes, I think that they are they are in contact, and we are working to make the partnership stronger. I believe you're batting on a good wicket, and things can only get better. 2 years is a short time in terms of building this type of coalition, but I'm very happy with the progress at this our second birthday.
Thank you very much, sir. Leader of the People's National Congress Reform and leader of the opposition. More significantly, in this case, leader of a partnership for national unity, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. This has been another program of the public interest. Remember, a Partnership for National Unity celebrates its second birthday on Monday, the 15th of July, 2013. I am Malika Ramsey. Thanks for watching.